Okay, I wanted to make another video because about this idiot Jimquisition. He's a big old fat establishment media guy, and the whole media misses the boat so much on Sony exclusives, and they're so dominant. The Sony biased guys are so dominant in the video game media space. It's a lot like the regular media and how they're all far left Democrats, and they're only going to tell you one narrative, and they're going to beat that narrative that favors their side over and over. But it's not true. And I didn't even watch this video at all. But I saw a thread on Reset Era that Jimquisition, who's a guy I really don't like in general, and to me he's a fat blowhard, greedy, and he's just always, shilling, and he won't ever criticize Sony. He will if it's the mob is, but that's, he's a mob follower, like all these guys who make their living, make their money, and they love to criticize the companies over microtransactions. That's like its own business, criticizing companies for microtransactions. But all these guys who do that are making big money on Patreon, on YouTube video views, all that stuff, and that's okay, they can do that, but these corporations can't use microtransactions to make money. Oh, no, that's bad. It's all hypocrisy, garbage. But just the point, I didn't even watch the video, but it was his problems with the Xbox One. And I'm like, we haven't seen this video 10 bazillion trillion times before. The Xbox One doesn't have exclusives and all that nonsense and lies, but it's so ingrained and so just beaten into our head, like this whole, the Russians messed up the election. Yeah, because he didn't like that Trump won, which I'm not a Trump fan either, but, that's why, because the Republican won. That's why all this, I just saw this thing on Twitter about how the United States, back in the Boris Yeltsin days, interfered with the Russian election. They basically put Yeltsin in there. And it's like, so, the media, the big bad Russians, all because they perceive it to be, it's all driven by the fact the Republican won. You think if the Russians had done this and the Hillary Clinton won, and the Russians helped her, you think any of this would have come to light? Not a word of it would have come to light. It's all nonsense. All complete nonsense. But anyways, moving back to Jimquisition and his tired video about the Xbox One doesn't have exclusives. That's nonsense. First of all, it does have as many exclusives as the PS4, generally speaking. As far as big AAA exclusives, I'm not counting every little Japanese game like Nier Automata and all these. Okay, I don't play those. I don't care about those. Sorry. And Nier Automata is actually kind of a halfway big one, so I could actually see in some parallel universe me playing something like that. But these people who want to play List Wars will start listing all these little Japanese games. Of course, the PlayStation is going to have little Japanese games. It's made by a Japanese publisher, Sony is Japanese, so they're going to get a lot of these little niche Japanese games. And because the Japanese are xenophobic in their video game market, and they don't buy Xbox, even though they're, it's a good console. They won't buy it because it's American made. They have a long history of this. In fact, they wouldn't even buy the Sega Genesis back in the day. It was shunned in Japan because Sega was apparently at one point an American company or something. There was some sort of history there. I don't even know it. Not qualified to speak on it, but at some point Sega had like American roots. Then it was Japanese. But just because it was tainted by America, they wouldn't buy the Mega Drive at all. Even though the Mega Drive was a good console, it sold like the worst in Japan out of any market. So they've got a long history of if your console's made by their own nation, they're not going to touch it. So they won't touch Xbox. So of course Sony is the only console in the hardcore market in Japan. So of course, they're going to get a lot of little dinky Japanese-centric games ported that don't really mean anything. But, if you want to do List Wars, then Sony's usually going to win because they're going to have a bunch of little irrelevant games nobody's ever heard of. But anyways, as far as like what I consider exclusives I've heard of that are AAA and that matter, Microsoft matches Sony step for step. Everybody made such a big deal out of God of War, and that's part of the thing here. Is the media hypes up the Sony exclusives 10,000 times more than any other games, even third-party games that sell 10 times as much. Ask yourself how much incredible hype Horizon Zero Dawn and the recent God of War got. I mean, it was. Compare that to the best-selling game of 2017. I have my handy chart here from MPD, who tracks United States sales. Now, granted, this is not world sales, but world sales are going to be very similar, except FIFA. The soccer game will be there, and I'm not really aware offhand of a world top 10 list, so I have to go with what I can get, which is the United States right here. But the point is, I always bring out this chart over and over and over again to make this point. Exclusives are not as important as the gaming media as people like Jimquisition make out. They're not even in the top 10 selling games of the year. Like 2017, best-selling games of 2017. This was after the end of 2017, MPD came out this list. For the whole year. It was Call of Duty World War II, number 1. You see the list. NBA 2K18, number 2. Destiny 2, number 3. Madden NFL 18, number 4. On and on. I'm sorry. Where's Horizon Zero Dawn? It got 500 times more publicity than any of these games. Ask yourself which one got more hype from people like Jimquisition, Call of Duty World War II or Horizon Zero. I mean, it's not even. If Call of Duty World War II is at 1% hype, Horizon Zero Dawn is at 10,000. 10,000 to 1. Literally. Nobody talks about these massive selling multiplayers. 90% of video game discussion is about the Sony exclusives only. And they don't sell anywhere near to that, So, the number one, judging by media, people like Jimquisition hype, okay, number one best-selling game in this list should have been Horizon Zero Dawn by a huge margin. Huge margin. Like, it shouldn't have even 50 to 1 over Call of Duty. But that's not what we see in the real world. The real world, people don't care about Sony. Where are these great Sony exclusives you're talking about, Jimquisition? Where? People didn't buy them. People didn't want them. They wanted Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon Wildlands. They wanted Grand Theft Auto 5. They wanted Nintendo exclusives. They wanted Madden NFL 18. They wanted Destiny 2. Oh gosh, Jimquisition and Fat Blowhard, Of course, all fat blowhards hate Destiny, so it's their, that's where they make money, is hating on Destiny. Like, heaven forbid you have a different opinion, Jimquisition. You would never have one. Anyways, so yeah, that's, I'll always bring out this chart over and over when people start overemphasizing the Sony exclusives. They're not even, now, even in 2018, now God of War is selling really, 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 really good. So it'll probably be like in the top 10, at least an actual Sony exclusive will be in the top 10 for a change. It'll probably be somewhere like 8 to 10. I think the MPD guy predicted it'll be like 7 or 8. So it'll be in this bottom half. That's it. But at least they'll have one. It'll be, now the hype, it was the most hyped game of the year, by a factor of 20. There's no other game that even comes close to the hype God of War got from the media like Jimquisition. But the actual sales will be much, 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 way down the list. Because you'll have, oh good grief, you'll have Call of Duty. I think there's a new Battlefield this year. You'll have Fallout 76. You'll have Anthem. You'll have Madden again. You'll have Forza Horizon might be there. Actually, Forza Horizon might make the top 10 too. Probably not, because it doesn't come out till like September or something, whereas God of War has had more months. God of War has already sold a ton, and then it'll sell a good deal more in the fall season. So, and all Horizon will have is the fall season. So, I wouldn't be surprised if God of War is like number 8 next year. But the point is, these Sony exclusives are so overrated in terms of how much people actually care. So, they're not buying the Sony hardware for the Sony exclusives, So, what is it? It's power, it's hardware power, it's UI, software, it's who's got, Games Pass. Xbox has Game Pass, I think is a good reason to get it. And EA access, It's power, I think. That's why, so you ask, now there's all this retconning narrative right now. Oh, Sony consoles win because they have more exclusives. They're saying that because it has less power right now. Because the Xbox One X is more powerful than the PS4 Pro. So the narrative is completely changed away from hardware to, oh, now it's software. This is all natural. Now, as soon as PS5 comes out and Sony's the most powerful console again, the narrative will immediately change back to, oh, power is so important, and and the PS5 has so much more power than Xbox, and blah blah blah. These things are predictable and cyclical. Right now, Sony doesn't have the power, so they have nothing left to do but try to tout the, but we've got the exclusives. The exclusives are irrelevant, as I've said, and all the Sony exclusives play the same. It's an increasing criticism I'm seeing. It's very true. They're all the same game. The Last of Us is the same as God of War, is the same as Uncharted 50,000. They're all so tired. They're all third person. They're all the same. They're the same game over and over. Days Gone, whatever. Spider-Man now, they're all the same. None of them are doing anything different. None of them are doing like Sea of Thieves, something new. Halo Wars, something new, a real-time strategy. None of them are doing any of that, They're all just generic, big budget, third person, same camera angle. That's all Sony exclusives know how to do. And yeah, and like I said, for every Sony exclusive that comes out like God of War, you had Sea of Thieves, or for I think it was last year, the Sony exclusive that was hyped to high heaven by all the media was maybe Infamous Second Son. I don't even remember. And by the same time, Microsoft came out with Halo Wars. Of course, nobody talked about Halo Wars 2. But if you've ever played Halo Wars, it's fun as hell. And it's like my first RTS probably, which is right up my alley, I loved the original Halo Wars. I never played Halo Wars 2 because the reviews came out and they were all like 6s, and so I just kind of lost any hype for it. But now I saw a post on Reset Era the other day that Halo Wars 2 has like 30,000 daily players, and they showed a chart where it's like the amount of players has stayed like incredibly consistent. These Microsoft games keep lasting, and these Sony games are very front loaded. They sell decent right up front, and then they just disappear and they have no lasting power. Like God of War, if you go look on Twitch right now, where's it going to be at? Nobody's watching God of War right now. Whereas Sea of Thieves will still have a decent audience. So yeah, it is what it is. But these Sony exclusives are so overrated. Just stop this crap, Jimquisition. This narrative is baloney. Look, do you want to know? I say that exclusives don't matter, but paradoxically, the reason, not only that, but I say that Xbox has the better exclusives. Paradoxically, the main reason that I play Xbox is because I like Halo and Gears of War. Where's that in your narrative, Jimquisition? I'll take those two franchises any day over freaking, over cliched B-movie zombie game number 10 billion from Sony that all the critics are going to gush over. It's all a bunch of stupid crap like The Last of Us, Go watch Video Game Donkey, I think. Go watch this video on The Last of Us and how crap it is. How the dialogue's crap. I've never even played it, but I know exactly what it's like. I mean, I played Uncharted. The only Uncharted game I played through, I think it was 3, or it may have been 2. But I played, start to finish, I played one of the Uncharteds on PS3. And let me tell you, that game is boring. I mean, it's okay. It's okay. If I had to rate it, I'd rate it a 7 out of 10, maybe. But I'm still bored years later of it, I mean, that game is boring. You gotta admit it, and yet it's so hyped, that Uncharted franchise, and they're all the same, so I have no desire to play any new Uncharted. And The Last of Us is going to be the same thing. They're all bullet sponges, and they're all very bad dialogue. That's one thing in Uncharted. It tried so hard to be clever, and the dialogue's terrible. If this was a romantic comedy, it would be laughed out of the theater, It's very bad dialogue, which is a problem in all video games. I don't know why. They just have terrible, terrible dialogue, and I don't know why. I mean, so bad. There's so much lack of creativity. And I'll say that about the Microsoft franchise the same way. I'm not being biased. Like, the dialogue in Gears of War, 90% of the time, is totally shit, Like, I don't know what these companies do to make such bad dialogue and storytelling and shit. But I'm not biased. So I'm going to tell you the same about Uncharted. The dialogue in that thing is groan-inducing and so bad, So yeah, I'm just pointing out, once again, there's this narrative peeping up, as it continually does, that, Sony has the exclusives. But that's wrong on multiple reasons. For starters, they don't have more exclusives than Xbox. I also have a list. It came from NPD. It was like the amount of published first-party exclusives. And it was like an official list. And it's a little old now, but basically, you looked at it and it showed you that Microsoft has literally had about as many exclusives as Sony this generation. They had Sunset Overdrive, they had this, they had that. So this idea that somehow Sony has more exclusives is false. Now, Sony did have more, but it was like 25 for Sony versus 20 for Xbox, or something like that. Maybe 35 for Sony, 30 for Xbox so far. And like I said, this was maybe like a year old, so it's not completely up to date anymore. But Sony had like maybe 5 or 8 more. True, they had more. But they were all like niche stupid games, honestly. Like, I don't remember what they were, but like PSVR games that no one would ever play, In terms of actual AAA exclusives that you'd want to play, like I said, the companies are always pretty even. Like this year so far, you've had what was the God of War, and Microsoft had Sea of Thieves. Now, the media praised the hell out of God of War, and they ignored Sea of Thieves. That's what always happens. So it gives you the perception like Sony has the bigger quote-unquote exclusives. But they really don't, because at the end of the day, those Sony exclusives don't sell even nearly to their hype. Now, God of War did sell really freaking good. I'll admit that. But it's the exception. Because think how many Sony exclusives have died that were so hyped. They're dead. Killzone. How much hype did that franchise get? It's dead. It didn't sell. It's dead because it didn't sell. Resistance. Remember that first-person shooter franchise? IGN couldn't give it a high enough score. I believe they gave it like a 9.5. The media just gushed over those games and hyped the hell out of them. They're dead. Remember Journey? That game, that stupid PSN game, everybody made a big deal out of it. It was garbage from the get-go. Gone. The developer, I believe, almost went out of business, or did go out of business. The developer of Journey, remember that shit? How hyped that was? You could go on and on. The hype, there's more. Infamous even. I mean, I imagine they'll come out with a new Infamous eventually, but that series seems pretty much on hiatus, I don't see people knocking down the door for another Infamous. Like I said, I would expect to get another Infamous, but all these, so really all Sony has right now is like Last of Us, and Uncharted's supposedly gone for now, I guess. Last of Us is pretty much the same thing. I guess this year, as far as franchises, and they have God of War, I guess. It's kind of an intermittent franchise. I'll put Gears, Halo, and Forza up against those any day. But anyway, yeah, just this year, Sony's not had more big exclusives. They had God of War. Microsoft had Sea of Thieves. This fall, I believe Sony's going to have Spider-Man. Microsoft's going to have Forza Horizon. It's... Anyway, so... Now, it's easy to sit there and say, like, well, that Sony has better exclusives because they're outselling the Xbox 2-1. But that's a lie, because last year, the Xbox 360 sold just as well as the PS3. Why did it do that? And if Sony has all these great exclusives, what they didn't... The exclusives were just as hyped. Remember all the hype for Killzone 2? Remember all the hype for, The Last of Us on PS3? Remember all the hype for all the Uncharted on PS3? You know, the hype was 10 times what any other game was last Gen 2. So if they had the most hyped exclusives by far, which they did, then why didn't the PS3 wildly outsell the Xbox 360? Because what really matters is like hardware power. I'm a hardware power guy, and I say it matters more than software. And the Xbox 360 was just as powerful, probably a little more powerful than the PS3. Now you could make an argument that PS3 exclusives were better looking, but I reject that. I think it was kind of a combination of things, but the thing of it was that Sony just put a lot more money into their exclusives, so they had maybe a little better production values. And then the other thing was just bias. All the media was so biased, they'll sit there and scream about how great Uncharted looked when it really didn't look that great. You know, they still do that. Like God of War, the media just, oh man, it looks so incredible. And all you gotta do is like look at the game to be like, that's ugly. You know, God of War is pretty much an ugly game. Now there's parts of it that looked pretty good to me, but anyways, so yeah, you get a combination of things like media overhype and so on. But point being that, oh yeah, every third-party multi-platform ran better on Xbox 360. Almost every single one. Grand Theft Auto 4, all those. You know, you can look at the Digital Foundry face-offs. 95% Xbox 360 won. That's why it's funny to see all these people who earlier when PS4 had the most power, they say like, oh, I have the PS4 because it runs the best multi-platforms. And it's like, okay, so you own the Xbox 360 last gen, right? Because it ran multi-platforms the best last gen. You know, and I bet most of them didn't. Hypocrites. But anyways, the point is, like, it's not exclusives that matter near as much as they're made out to be. You know, it just isn't. And, you know, to prove it, Sony doesn't even have exclusives half the time. Like, fall of, like, 2016, I think it was. They didn't even have an exclusive. They're like Drive Club. I don't even think that counts. Speaking of another franchise that sold so poorly, we'll probably never see another. There seems to be a lot of those on the Sony side, huh? Drive Club. So, yeah, just pointing all this stuff out. Like, what? And so you say, like, well, PS4 is outselling Xbox 2-1 this gen. So let's ignore that Xbox 360 outsold the PS3 last gen. And so where were these supposedly great exclusives for Sony last gen then? And don't tell me they didn't have hyped exclusives. They had Uncharted last gen, and that was hyped to hell. They had The Last of Us, that was hyped to hell by the Jimquisitions of the world, the Blowhards in the media. You know, all those games were hyped to hell, so they didn't cause the PS3 to outsell the 360 last gen. So it must be something else, huh? I mean, to me, what it is, it's a combination of things. It's hardware power, it's price. Those are the biggest two, and release date. So you look at why did the Xbox 360 outsell the PS3? Because early in the gen, the Xbox 360 was like, I can't remember the exact price, but I think $399, and they had like the $299 core system or whatever. What happened to PS3? It was $599, and it was less powerful than the Xbox 360. I mean, by and large, I hate to say that, but put a gun to my head, and I think the Xbox 360 was a little more powerful than the PS3. Not a lot. You know, you're talking 5%, 10%, but, you know, so the Xbox 360 was arguably more powerful than the PS3. At least they were on par. I think nobody would really disagree with that. You know, you might think that the PS3 was 5% more powerful than the 360, 10% more powerful than the 360. I disagree, and I think the evidence clearly shows the 360 was 10% more powerful than the PS3. But they were basically on par, you know. So 360 won that gen because it came out a year earlier. It was just as powerful, and it was way cheaper at the beginning. That's a recipe for success, you know. And the exclusives don't matter that much, in my opinion, because you're getting great exclusives with either. Like, if you're a kid and you go in the store and you know, if you buy an Xbox, ooh, you're getting Gears of War, you're getting Halo, you know. You buy a PlayStation, ooh, you're getting Last of Us, you're getting Uncharted. You're getting your exclusives either way, you know. You know? I mean, seriously. And it's not like one is really better than the other, no matter what people say. I mean, to me, I like Halo, I like Gears, so that's my choice. especially Halo. Gears has fallen off. Actually, both of those have fallen off. But, you know, that's just probably because I got into Destiny and it's so fun. It kind of makes most single player games seem worse. But yeah. And so, you know, again, Jimquisition, just a fake video, stupid video. He doesn't get it. You know, if Sony exclusives are so important, where are they in the top 10 for 2017? And I just saw another thing that triggered this was I just was on Reset Air and I saw that Ubisoft came out and said they had the top selling game of the first 6 months of the year for the third year in a row. So basically from January to June, first 6 months of the calendar year for 2018, the best selling game in the world is Far Cry 5, I believe it was this year for Ubi. And last year it was like For Honor or something. And the year before that it was, I don't remember, another Ubisoft game, Assassin's Creed or something. So the point is, last year it may have been Ghost Recon Wildlands instead of For Honor then. I don't remember, but it was one. Point is, Ubisoft has had the number one selling game of the first 6 months of the year worldwide, 3 years running. And they were touting that. So it's just like, once again, you know, what was the most hyped game 3 years running? A Sony exclusive, you know, every year without fail. In 2017, it was Horizon Zero Dawn, by far. And nobody would argue with that. Nobody would, in their right mind, would sit here and tell me that Horizon Zero Dawn wasn't more hyped than any third-party game. This year was God of War. In 2016, I don't remember what it was, but I'm sure it was a Sony exclusive. Probably Infamous. Wasn't that the year of Infamous? Whatever Sony exclusive was spring of 2016. By default, it's going to be always the most hyped. So, yeah. So that's it. That's my point. I'm gonna make some other videos. They're tangential points, but like about how Sony has lost a bunch of exclusives. Like just in the past 6 months, they lost No Man's Sky used to be an exclusive, not anymore. Nier Automata used to be an exclusive, not anymore. Crash Bandicoot used to be an exclusive, not anymore. Neo used to be an exclusive. It's on PC. And there was a fifth one too that I can't remember offhand. Oh, Hellblade, Senua's Sacrifice or whatever. All those games were so hyped, overrated because they were Sony exclusives for a little while. But all of them are on Xbox, or I think Neo may only be on PC. But so people can stop overrating No Man's Sky. I remember all the hype that thing got because people thought it was Sony exclusive. Yeah, it was a timed exclusive, and you know there wasn't any official word that was coming to Xbox, so they treated it like an exclusive. Talk about overhyped. Think anybody gives a crap about No Man's Sky now that it's on Xbox? The only reason they were hyping that crap was because it was PlayStation exclusive. So yeah, that's all I got. Just guys like Jimquisition missed the point. Oh, and I wanted to say, why did PS4 win this gen? It won this gen because it was cheaper. Remember when it came out, it was $3.99, and Xbox was, I think, $4.99 with Kinect. And it was more powerful to boot. You know, that's it. That's all you need. You know, you're cheaper. You launch at the same time. You're more powerful. You rack up the domination like years 1, 2, 3, and by then your lead is too big to overcome. That's it. That's what won Sony's generation. Nothing to do with exclusives, because Sony had crap exclusives for the first 3 years. Like they didn't even have anything that I remember. What did they have the first 3 years of this gen? Infamous? Yeah, they tried to hype that. It's garbage. You know, I don't even remember. They didn't have much their first 3 years, that's for sure. But what they did have was good hardware and good price. That's what you need. And Sony does have a natural advantage in Europe. I'll give you that. So they naturally, everything equal, are probably going to sell better in Europe than the Xbox. You know, that's why even though the PS3 was a huge mistake, and, you know, came out a year later and was less powerful and was way too expensive and all that, it still managed to tie the Xbox 360 just because Sony has, you know, no doubt, I'm not denying this, kind of a bigger brand worldwide in video games. You know, I think that's easily acceptable. Reasonable people could agree on that. And, but yeah, that's what I have on the Jimquisition.